glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Of course, we're going to get into a little bit of news, but it's Thursday, which means it's live Q&A. Ask anything you want. Let's have a fun conversation. Everything is open. Hopefully, it pertains to football and to the 49ers, but football is okay as well. Let's just have a fun conversation. I'm really excited about this. One of my favorite episodes is where I get to interact with everyone. That's why I enjoy doing the live streams when I have the opportunity. So it's a lot of fun. So as you come in and you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. And we'll get into a little bit about what is going on with this 49ers football team, because there are still injuries that have to be talked about. It's going to affect the game. A lot of conversation today with D'Amico Ryans during his press conference was, how good is Atlanta's run game? And it's pretty good. Like he said, they don't really try to fool you. They show you what's going to happen. You go over to Patreon, I have a scouting report where you can actually see the film of Atlanta, and you can see them load up 2 and 3 tight ends. You can see them put guys off ball and then move them across the formation and try to create, bigger numbers with bigger bodies to be able to get their run plays going. If you can stop it, if you can get out there and be able to stop that early on, you can force them into passing. And right now they haven't proven to be a very good passing team. Marcus Mariota, 4 touchdowns, but also 4 interceptions. So he's completing under 60% of his passes at 55 or 57.7. So the 49ers run defense is going to be important, and they could be without 3 of the 4 starting defensive linemen. Luckily, Samson Ebukam has returned to practice, so that is good news for the 49ers. And it wasn't like he just returned, but he came back and was a big part of practice. So the guys who didn't practice, Eric Armstead, of course, he didn't even make the trip with the 49ers. So he's recovering still. They haven't been willing to put him on IR. Still makes me hopeful for the future. But I don't think we're going to see Armstead until after the bye week. So we're not going to see him against Atlanta, Kansas City, or Los Angeles. I think we won't see him until the Chargers in week 10. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking at for Armstead. And then for Bosa, he was out again. He did not practice. I'm sure they're going to say he's tomorrow they're going to give the designations. I'm guessing they list him as doubtful, but I don't think Bosa's going to go in this game. I think Bosa won't play again until potentially Los Angeles. I think he's going to miss the next couple of games. They're going to be very cautious with this groin to make sure it doesn't get more serious. And then Javon Kinlaw, again, does not practice. Don't expect Kinlaw to play either. Another guy they haven't been willing to put on the IR, so we'll see. And, of course, we know Emmanuel Mosley's out for the year. Jimmy Ward, of course, until he's able to figure out if he can play with that hand, he won't be back. And then Trent Williams, we're going to start hearing conversations about him coming back next week. I think that's the first time that Trent Williams is a legitimate chance to come back, but we'll see. And we got a question, so I'm gonna hop over there and check it out. WTM says, give us 3 concerns you would have about the matchup on Sunday. I think number 1, it's stopping the run, because even though Hassan Ridgeway and Kevin Givens have done a very good job, you do have to rotate them out. And when you rotate them out, you're going to have Terry Hyder, like 49ers Faithful said, T.Y. McGill. And those are the guys that are going to be in. Spence played well as well, but that's what the Atlanta Falcons do, is run the football. So it's all going to come down to, can they stop the run? I think that's my first concern. I think they can. They've done a pretty good job. Hassan Ridgeway is fantastic, but if you got to a rotation where you had to use Hyder and Charles Omenihu, that's where you can see it movement for Atlanta on the inside, and that's when they could get this run game going. That's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to get physical run going without Cordero Patterson. It is really a different run game without him. It's not as explosive, but they still try to get after it. And, Arthur Smith in this offense, they're bullheaded about getting the run game going and letting that establish the passing game. I know it sounds familiar, but he's gotten run games going over the years, including in Tennessee. Probably did help having, Henry there in Tennessee, but that's what their goal is. Now, number 2, as far as for WTM's biggest concerns, I think it has to be the corner taking over for Emmanuel Mosley against the big receivers. Kyle Pitts has been limited in practice, which means he could play in this game. but they don't just have him. They have Drake London as well. They have a couple big targets, and that if they can use their body, they can find ways to be able to get the football down from out of the air from Mariota. So I think that's another concern. And I think the third one would just be playing down to competition, which means, going in there and feeling like, you're playing at their level instead of playing at the level you should. Right now, they've done a very good job in the last couple of games of executing at a pretty high level. Have they left plays out there? Have they made mistakes? Of course they have. But it's a far cry from what we got against Denver or Seattle. They are way better than that. And I think that continued success is what they need. So I think those are the three big concerns I would have for the 49ers. And overall, I think they can, handle each one of them because they are well equipped. They have a lot of depth at cornerback. They have the defensive line guys in. They brought in T.Y. McGill, like 49ers Faithful said. So, I mean, they've made the moves. They've done the things that are necessary. So I'm kind of still like, oh, we're okay with it. And what's up, SG? How's it going? Says thoughts on 49ers signing T.Y. McGill. I liked it. T.Y. McGill did really good in the preseason against the 49ers when he played for the Vikings. He's a guy that's a penetrator. He's a big guy. He makes a lot of plays. He's got some pretty good moves. I went back and watched some of his film just to be acquainted with what he does. And I think he fits what Chris Kasarik wants. Obviously, they waited a long time to bring him in. So bringing him in now is more about injuries. But I do think he can make an impact on this team. And they have a specific type that they target. And T.Y. McGill definitely fits the bill. He will help them stop the run. And, he can penetrate and get up the field. So I think that he's important for what the 49ers want to do. And this is all to bridge the gap until you get Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead back. Because if those two guys weren't coming back, they would make a bigger splash than T.Y. McGill because there's guys like Ndamukong Suh that are out there. So this means they're trying to bridge the gap until they can get those guys back. WTM says, any updates on Elijah Mitchell? No, I haven't heard anything on Elijah Mitchell. I've always thought the target would be the Chargers game after the bye week. I think that's when we're going to see Elijah Mitchell back. And I expect him to be full ready to go. So we'll see. But I think that's going to be the perfect time for Elijah Mitchell to come back and make a huge impact on this run game because this run game is going really good with Jeff Wilson Jr. And Elijah Mitchell is even better than Jeff Wilson Jr. because he's so explosive and he just hits the hole like no other. That is going to be one heck of a 1-2 punch. I'm very excited for him to come back. But there hasn't been really anything talked about when it comes to Elijah Mitchell. SG says, thoughts on the injury suffered by Emmanuel Moseley, who will be out for the remainder of the 2022-2023 season. It's unfortunate. I feel bad for Emmanuel Moseley. It's just it's a normal play. He goes up to knock the ball away. He makes a great play, and he ends up getting hurt. I mean, this is what happens when your foot gets stuck in the turf and an offensive player hits your leg. There's just no way around these types of injuries. These ones are extremely unfortunate. Would it have been different on grass? That could be an argument that could be had. I don't know that for sure. I've seen these same injuries happen on grass. So I think there's just no way to really prevent them. But I think you try to do everything you can. And if that means putting natural grass in every stadium, I'm okay with that. But it's unfortunate because Moseley was playing at a Pro Bowl level. He was going to get paid in the offseason. And now he's going to get another 1-year prove-it deal. And hopefully it ends up in San Francisco because I really like Moseley and I love where he was going. But it's going to be a tough road back, and hopefully all the teammates keep pushing and helping Emmanuel Moseley. I think he's a good dude, and he was playing really well. SG says, who would you use to replace, or who should replace Emmanuel Moseley? Sorry about reading that wrong. I think it should be Deommodore Lenoir. Lenoir was getting a lot of time on the outside. He looked pretty good during training camp. But right now, he's the guy until they can eventually bridge the gap to Jason Verrett. Jason Verrett will be the eventual starter. Kyle Shanahan said as much. But it's all about working him in slowly and making sure 2020, or is it 2019, doesn't happen again, where they try to get Jason Verrett out there against the Steelers. They got absolutely smoked because he didn't have his legs underneath him and he wasn't ready to come back. They don't want that to happen, but it has been well over 12 months now since he had his injury. So I think Jason Verrett is wanting to get out there. He's wanting to prove what he can do, but the 49ers are taking the right approach because if we can get a second half of the season with Jason Verrett playing at the level he played in 2020, we have the opportunity to have 2 lockdown corners again. It's one of those cases where you lose a player like Emmanuel Moseley, and that really stinks. But you have a guy that's on that level with Jason Verrett if he can stay healthy. Not a lot of teams can say that, but this is a good opportunity for Jason Verrett. And we know the 49ers have built this team for this reason. And this is one of the reasons they had Jason Verrett on their roster, just in case something like this happened. Lou says, nobody ever expects Kinlaw to play. That's always been the problem. I don't think, I don't expect him to play this week. I was hoping that he was going to eventually get over the fluid on the knee, but so far he hasn't been able to. And he hasn't been on the field, and he hasn't been able to make an impact on this team. I thought he did really good at the beginning of the season, and then the knee flared up again. And, I don't think it's not from him. He wants to play. It's the team themselves holding him out. I don't know what the remainder of the season is going to illustrate if he ends up getting back out there. If he does end up getting back out there and he ends up playing, the like 10 of the remaining 12 games, he can make a big enough impact on this team that you might think about having his fifth-year option being picked up. But if he doesn't, he misses most of those games again, I think it makes it hard to want to bring him back, understanding that, he continues to have problems with that same knee, which means it could be chronic. I think that's a tough situation for the 49ers and tough for Javon Kinlaw because I know he wants to be out there. SG says, thoughts on Talanoa Hufanga? Hufanga's played great. I mean, Hufanga has been all-world at safety. It's been spectacular. And he's just got to keep it going. And, his running mate, Tayshaun Gibson's played at a high level as well. So the safety room for the 49ers is two of the top guys in the league right now in the way that they're playing. A lot of that goes into, I'm sure some of it with the defensive line pressure. And now they're going to pick up the slack with some of the defensive line being out. But so far, they've been up to the task, and Talanoa Hufanga's been flying around making plays. It's just been a good performance from him and a lot to build on as we move forward in his career. He's only in year 2. This is exciting, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I see a potential of another 5th-round superstar. Right now, he's a star, but he could be a superstar if he continues to develop at this level. Ernest says, hey, so are you going to watch the Chiefs game or go to the wedding in 2 weeks? I have to be at the wedding, Ernest, because I am actually performing the ceremony. So I'm the officiant. So I will be at the wedding. I'm in the wedding. So I will be there. I'm going to watch the Chiefs game as much as I can. 49ers vs. Chiefs game, I'm going to watch it as much as I can. But overall, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the end of the game because the game starts at 1:25, I believe. It should get over a little after 4, and the wedding starts at 5. So there is going to be some interesting things coming there, Ernest, for sure. Ernest says, when it comes to the D-line, you got to trust the Niners and the players they pick. They do a really good job. They really do. And every guy they bring in, fits a certain mold of what Chris Kasarik wants from his defensive linemen. And the fact that he keeps bringing guys in that fit that bill and getting the most out of them, it's impressive. And, that's something spectacular with the coach. Not all coaches can do that. Not all coaches can make all the players around them so much better. And he does it, which means he's got the right stuff. He's got the right teaching. He knows exactly what players are supposed to do in his scheme and what they want to do on that defensive line. And he's got it down to a T. And that's why these guys are successful. And, you take a good player and you can make them great. You take a great player, you can make them elite. You take an elite player, you can make them all world. That's what Chris Kasarik's doing right now. And that's what we need. That we need this 49ers defense to continue to dominate up front. And it's going to be impactful. And if they can just get by the way that they've been playing right now, they've done a really good job until we get the other 3 back. This 49ers defense is just going to be stronger because these backups have gotten so many reps. So it's going to be important later on. Ernest says, Brendel, grade on the year so far, and do they need to upgrade, go deep in the playoffs? I don't think they're going to upgrade, not this point in the season. I thought early on in the season he really struggled. I thought over the last 2 weeks he's definitely elevated his game. I wonder how much of that is that Daniel Brunskill is now back and pushing him potentially for that spot. I think Brendel has always been a guy that was pretty good in the run game and then struggled to anchor in the pass game. I think that has continued, but over the last couple of weeks, he's gotten better and better. He's gotten more comfortable working with Spencer Burford, comfortable working with Aaron Banks. They've been without Trent Williams, yet their pressures are staying around the same. So I think Brendel's doing a pretty good job. I think early on in the year, I would have gave him more of a D, but now I'm going to give him a C-. I think he just got into that C. He's not average yet, but he's C- over the last 2 games. If he can continue to develop and get better, then the 49ers have a real opportunity, but they can win with Jake Brendel at center. They've already proven it, but they have to make sure that they're strong with those guards. And so far, the young guards have played pretty good. I just don't think there's an option out there that you can go to that is going to be able to play better than Brindle. The only guy on the roster that may be able to do that is Daniel Brunskill, but so far they haven't been willing to make a change. And we know from last year, Chris Furster wasn't willing to make a change and pull a starting offensive lineman in place of Aaron Banks, even though they believed Aaron Banks was ready at the end of last year. So they like that continuity. They like chemistry on that offensive line. But I don't see them making a whole lot of moves there, but we'll see what happens. That was actually a very good topic. Lou says, has anyone even seen JV practicing? Yes, they have seen him practicing. I watched a video of him practicing. I watched a video of him working out before the Panthers game as well. So there is well-documented video of Jason Verrett. In fact, during training camp, Lou, I actually saw Jason Verrett running, going through drills on a side field. So he's been ready for a long time. They're just really being cautious with Jason Verrett, and he looked pretty good at those points. I think he's been fine so far. I don't know what his top end speed or anything like that is. I don't know how he's feeling when he's driving on footballs or getting in and out of his breaks. Those are things he's going to share with his trainers and coaches. So I'm not really abreast of that, but overall, I thought he's moved pretty good. And he looks pretty comfortable on his knees. It doesn't look like he's favoring it. I think those are good news for Jason Verrett and the potential of him coming in. Ernest says, I was in a Kinlaw fan, but now I'm thinking it's time to move on at the end of the year. I think I'm waiting till the end of the year. I've been, a huge supporter of Javon Kinlaw, and at some point you have to realize, that, hey, the guy can be on the field and available. I don't blame the guy for the injuries, but injuries are real, and if you're not able to produce for your team, it really stinks. And I thought Kinlaw came out and he did a pretty good job over the first few weeks. And I thought the whole knee thing was behind him. And then, it reared its ugly head and he's missed the last couple of games. So I'm going to wait to see how this thing pays off, because I do think he has immense talent, but he has to be on the field. So we'll see where this goes. And I can guarantee you Kinlaw wants to be on the field. The 49ers want him on the field. But right now the knee hasn't been, listening and doing what they need. So you're right. I think it's tough right now for Javon Kinlaw, and we just gotta, hope that these interior defensive linemen that they have that are stepping in can continue to do the job, because we're gonna need them. Lou says they need to spend all the next year's early draft capital on O-line. I don't think they're gonna do that. I mean, they have early round draft pick in Aaron Banks. They have the one of the highest paid left tackles in the league in Trent Williams. They have Spencer Burford, who they spent a 4th round pick on. Mike McGlinchey's a 1st round pick. They might have to replace McGlinchey, but the replacement could already be here with Colton McKivitz. I mean, they could potentially draft a center, but at what, draft pick are they going to draft a center? They're not going to take one in the 1st round probably. So I don't know how much they're going to, going to draft offensive linemen. I think they will continue to do what they've done, and that's take offensive linemen throughout the draft. I think Banks is one of the higher draft picks since McGlinchey, but I think that's just how they approach it. I think this is kind of a different way of handling offensive line, and this is what they're going to go with. They have Daniel Brunskill. They have some depth, and overall, so far, the offensive line has played pretty well. Jalen Moore had some good reps this last week. I just don't see it, and Lou is saying tackle. They could draft a tackle, especially with McGlinchey potentially being, on the road. They could go that route. I would not be opposed to drafting offensive linemen. I'm never opposed to drafting offensive linemen. Just hasn't been what they've done. Besides tackle, they haven't drafted anyone higher than Banks in the 2nd round. And I'm not sure Banks was the initial target. I think it was an offensive tackle. They were going to move inside. So this is just kind of how the 49ers go about it. But I get what you're saying, Lou, because offensive line has been a big question. I just think some of the questions have been answered by Banks and Burford, but there's still going to be questions about McGlinchey in the offseason and whether he's going to leave, and whether, Jalen Moore is the eventual replacement for Trent Williams. I don't know that for sure. He's going to have to do a lot better in film over the next couple games to show that. WTM says, who would you say is the best route runner? If you're talking about the best route runner on the team, I think it's Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk runs the best clean routes on the football team, and I think that's pretty clear by the amount of separation that he gets on his routes. He gets a lot of separation. That's usually around 2.5, 3 yards of separation, and so he's the one that's doing it the best. Kyle's very comfortable with his route running, and Kyle's one of the most critical about route running in this entire league. So I think that's what it comes down to. They just look at the different players, and I think Brandon Ayuk is that guy. Now they have talked a lot about Jawan Jennings, and the fact that Jawan Jennings creates separation because of the way he runs routes. I don't think he's the best route runner, but anytime that you have something about you that creates, it's interesting. So Lou says you can't draft injuries. Yeah, you can't, but you also have to take chances. I think the 49ers have kind of changed their thought process on drafting over the last several years. But even guys, that you draft that don't have injury issues can get injured. It's just a different game for sure. JLE says WTF didn't get a notification. It's unfortunate, JLE. That is happening a lot, unfortunately. Lots of people keep messaging me and saying, hey, I didn't get a notification. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. Something in the settings with YouTube. Some people just aren't getting notifications, so I apologize for that. I'm going to try to get it to where you guys know a little bit more of the schedule when it's I'll post it on social media and stuff, post it on our community page, try to get it out there so everyone knows. But usually Thursdays, 4 o'clock, live stream, you guys can catch me here. I know I had to do it once early, once before, but what's up, David Campbell? How's it going? Welcome to chat. SG says I'm 5-0 in my fantasy football league. Well done, SG. That's tearing it up right there. That's how you get it done. Fantasy football, it's not something that I partake in, but I understand it. Lou says, what I'm saying is defensive linemen are easy to get. Offensive linemen of any quality, you must draft early. As far as offensive tackle, usually the guys that you draft early end up being, the big time players in this league. I know Trent Williams is one of the best, but you can find good players, in the first 3 rounds. So they have a lot of 3rd round picks, especially, with the comp picks that they've been getting. They could definitely move around and do that. I just don't know what the 49ers are going to decide to do over the next couple years with the way Kyle Shanahan approaches offense, because it's going to be determined by who the quarterback is. If Trey Lance is the quarterback, which I believe he will be, they're going to design this offense a certain way built around him. So I do think they're going to use some draft capital on offensive line, but they're also going to have a lot of free agents that they're going to have to fill the void of. So I don't know for sure it's going to be a lot of offensive linemen. I'm sure they will draft some because they got to continue to replenish. And you've seen, guys like Justin Skule, who people were excited about a couple years ago, he's gone, and they keep filtering these guys through and bringing in guys and seeing who sticks. And some of them have, some of the guys have made some plays, Burford 4th round, that's impressive. And he's going to make a lot of plays. So I'm excited about the offensive line's growth. We'll see what it looks like, in week 12, week 13, and how these guys continue to develop. And if they develop at a high level, by the time we get to playoffs, those 2 guys on the interior could be making some huge plays for this 49ers team. WTM says, as of now, would you grade this defense top 2 in the league? I think it's the number 1 defense in the entire league. I don't think that there's another defense better, especially if the 49ers were healthy. Now, I know they're not going to be healthy now. Emmanuel Mosley's out, but I feel like they have the guys around that can just make plays. So I'm definitely excited about this defense. I think the defense is going to continue to keep the 49ers in every single game that they play. And right now they're just playing at the highest level. They haven't given up more than 12 points in the first half, all season. That's ridiculous. 12 points total. That's crazy. They haven't given up 20 points this season in a game. So they're first in a lot of categories, and I think they're going to continue that. And so far, they've been able to overcome the injuries. At some point, will it catch up to them? It could, but I don't know if that's going to be right now. It is a long season. We've only made it through 5 games. A lot can change. But right now, this 49ers defense is the best in the league. And I think that they go out there and they prove it every single week. And guys like Charvarius Ward are like, hey, I'm tired of flying under the radar. I want to get recognized for what I do. And I think that's going to happen because when you're a part of one of the better defenses in the league, people start taking notice of who you are. And I think Ward's in for a lot of accolades this year. SG says thoughts on Patrick Mahomes. He's crazy good. Patrick Mahomes can, extend plays, develop. We're going to get a good look at him and, next week when the 49ers play the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for the 49ers. But, Patrick Mahomes is one of the best that does it in the NFL and one of the best to watch. So that'll be a good one. David says, just got done with a 2-hour corn maze session. Glad to be back with AC hitting me. David, did you go to Del Oso Farms? That's what I want to know. I went to Del Oso on Saturday, and it was a lot of fun. Did the corn maze, did one side of the corn maze, didn't do the other one. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm just curious if you went over there to Del Oso Farms, since it's so close to where you live. And then Ernest says, McGlinchey is definitely going to go with Jimmy if he can. McGlinchey likes playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see. I mean, it all going to come down to what the 49ers offer McGlinchey and what he can get on the open market. Sometimes players aren't valued outside into the NFL the way they are with the 49ers. But McGlinchey's one of those guys. He's going to be a unrestricted free agent. He gets to decide what he wants to do. We'll see if the 49ers make a pitch to bring him back. They haven't been willing to pay offensive linemen so far, letting them leave. We'll see if McGlinchey's going to be that guy. This year he's making $10.8 million. What will it be? Yeah, so David did go to Del Oso. So, yeah, that was fun. I think I did Maze 1, David, and that was pretty fun. West Coast member says, Kinlaw, a wasted pick with so much talent on that draft. He definitely hasn't panned out so far. There was a lot of players around him that were really good. And, the 49ers decided to go with Javon Kinlaw. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he hasn't been able to produce at the level that I think everyone was expecting. And I don't think the level that he was expecting or the 49ers are expecting. We'll see what happens over the remainder part of this year. Let's see if Kinlaw can get back on the field and prove, that he is that guy. I thought over the first 3 games he did pretty good. I thought he would have been hitting his stride right now, but then the injury, flared up again. So I get what you're saying, West Coast, for sure. Ernest says, do you think the Niners have utilized Brandon Ayuk for potential yet? I think that, Brandon Ayuk is somebody that I expect there to be more production. I actually thought that Brandon Ayuk was going to get over 1,000 yards receiving this year. It was something I envisioned for him. Thought he was going to have a really big year, and I still think it can come. But right now, this offense has been in a state of flux since after the Seattle game. They've been transitioning from a Trey Lance offense, the way it was built, the way that they were designing and running plays, to a Jimmy Garoppolo-led offense, and it is different. They're going to work these guys in, and I think as teams try to take away a Deebo Samuel, there's going to be opportunities for Brandon Ayuk, and I think he will start to get his numbers. So I'm excited about what Brandon Ayuk, is going to do in this offense. I think he's going to be fantastic, but we're 5 games in. Let's see what happens in the next couple games and see if he starts making plays, even more plays. I thought he's made some, but some of those plays that we're expecting, right, those big-time plays, I would like him to make some of those back shoulder throws. I want to see him and Jimmy get that timing down on that, so we'll see if that happens. WTM says, yo, Coach Ant, what do you think Trey Lance is doing right now? I think he's studying. I think he's trying to get back. They said he's been going in all the meeting rooms. I don't know if you guys saw the video of him, at a pickup basketball game. He's just hanging out with his cast on, watching Juwan Jennings, Deebo, and Brandon Ayuk play basketball. I think that, that's all he can do right now is just work on his craft. He's probably playing some video games and doing his rehab stuff, but I mean, that's all he can do right now. And I think eventually, he'll be back on his feet and he'll be preparing to come back again. But yeah, I think that's what he's doing. Davis says, I did both mazes and found all the clues. Wow, that's very impressive. No wonder it took 2 hours, but that's extremely impressive. Well done, David. Mr. Day 4641 says, Kinlaw about to enter chat. Nah. He said, y'all saw him on Grant, right? Yeah, I saw that, but I'm not saying anything bad about Kinlaw. All I'm saying is, and I think he would exactly agree with it, because I'm not saying he's a bust, any of that. I'm just saying, unfortunately, he's not on the field right now. He played good through the first 3 games. I'm not hating on the guy. I'm just being, observant, of what's going on, keeping it real. And I think even he would say that, hey, he wants to be on the field. That's not the question. He wants to be out there. In fact, he tried to give it a go a couple weeks ago, and there was fluid on the knee, and the team said no. So it's not for lack of trying, and it's unfortunate. I never blame injuries on the player. You just can't. He wants to be out there. He wants to be playing. So, no, this is a different type of thing than him on Grant for sure. But, yeah, I did see that. And what's up, Traffic? How's it going? And SG's letting everyone know that he has Brandon Ayuk on his fantasy football team. Well done. Lou says, and what exactly do you think MM is worth? And do you really think they'll pay that much? I don't, because Kyle won't do it. I don't know exactly what his worth is. I don't know what the market is going to be like for a right tackle in the NFL. What I do know is that Mike McGlinchey is actually putting together a very good season. Last time I checked, and I don't know if that number rings true, but he had only given up 5 hurries on the season. That is pretty good. Yeah, he's he's been pretty good this year. One of the best run blockers still, but I don't know what the worth is. 10.8 million is pretty cheap for a right tackle. I don't know if they're going to be willing to give him more, but you're only worth what people will give you. Kyle Shanahan does go left tackle, right tackle as far as, talent wise. So he'd be willing to pay the most to a right tackle. The salary cap is going up. But if they have a cheaper option, they feel can give the same amount of production or pretty close, they'll go the cheaper option. That's just how they roll. And Mr. Day says, I didn't mean you were dogging Kinlaw. I meant people in chat. Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that. For sure. I mean, that sometimes Kinlaw gets pretty upset about that when he should, you know what I mean? He's defensive of what he wants and from his career and what he's trying to do and, how he's trying to produce and get money for his family. And I understand it, but yeah, people definitely, people don't like injuries. I mean, that's one thing I found out ever since I started doing, the shows is that injuries really do. And people that have injuries consistently frustrate people. And I get it. We want everyone on the field. And it's unfortunate when these guys suffer injuries and they're just not able to get out from under it. I mean, one of my favorite players that I was hyped about was Jalen Hurd, and he was just never able to get healthy. It was so frustrating for him, I'm sure, frustrating for the team, and for me, who was a huge fan. Now I got a Jalen Hurd jersey that, I can't wear. Well, it's a traveling number 14 jersey, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I completely get it. Ernest says, I got a starting running back and it's starting quarterback or JV. I wish you were the coach, my man. Yeah, or JV. I wish you were the coach, my man. Yeah, I got you. Lou says, West Coast, what Wirfs or Kinlaw, for example? Yeah, Christian Wirfs was right there. Tampa Bay actually traded up with the 49ers to select Christian Wirfs. So yeah, the 49ers could have had Christian Wirfs. They could have taken CD Lamb. There was lots of players right there, of course, they could have went with. But they didn't, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. They had traded away Buckner. They were looking for a replacement. Kinlaw was really good against the run. You've seen that play out over the beginning of the season. Kinlaw is better than Buckner against the run, where Buckner excels at a higher level than almost any interior defensive lineman is his pass rush skills. He's fantastic. So I think they were going with a little bit of a transition there. With Armstead moving inside, you really don't need the pass rush coming from Kinlaw. You need him more to stop the run. So it's unfortunate it hasn't worked out. I understand what they were going with. I know Chris Kasarik was a huge fan, of Kinlaw. And at some point, maybe Kinlaw's going to come back. I don't know. We'll see. WTM says, so in man-to-man coverage, you would love Jimmy to look for Ayuk. Absolutely. Absolutely I would. And you know what? Jimmy's been doing that with man coverage, right? He got man coverage. He had Tevin Coleman. He had man coverage. He threw back shoulder to Brandon Ayuk. So yeah, there are opportunities for him to get the football, out to Brandon Ayuk in man coverage. I think anytime it's man, it's zero coverage. You got to be looking for your playmakers to be able to make big time plays. And Brandon's usually the one that wins one-on-one matchups. I say usually because it's not all the time. But yeah, that's what happens sometimes. And Portolo says Jalen Hurd disappeared. No social media presence. Guy is literally off the grid. Exactly, Portola. He's just gone. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know, what happened with his knee. The fact he didn't go anywhere in the league and no one even gave him a workout or tryout, it probably means the knee was even worse than anticipated, and he's just gone. Because I think someone would have gave him an opportunity to come in and work out. Whenever you're 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds, and you have position versatility, they at least take a look at you. So it must be something, crazy, but yeah, he's gone. I've seen nothing, heard nothing from him. Mr. Data says, sorry if you covered this already, but do you think we can improve an interior line or defensive back depth before the trade deadline? Or do you think we need to address the defensive line? I don't think they need to address the defensive line. I think right now they're in a waiting game because I think they want to see what's going to happen with Kinlaw and Armstead. I think they fully expect Armstead to come back. They haven't been willing to put either one of them on the IR. So they're kind of just trying to bridge the gap until they get them back. So I think if they thought they needed to add, they could go out and get an Ndamukong Suh, right? They could go and add an interior defensive lineman that way. You wouldn't have to trade any draft capital away, and it would be a non-guaranteed contract. So I don't know if it's a defensive line. As far as interior offensive line, I think they're going with who they got. They got the young guys inside, and I think they're going to stick with it. I don't see them trading for an interior offensive lineman. I think they're going to roll with who they got. And Whether that's right or wrong, that's kind of how they feel. And so far, I can't argue too much. They've held up. This line has done a pretty good job overall. They're giving up less than 2 sacks a game, which is one of the top 5 in the NFL. You can't really argue with that, even though it always appears that they don't. If you listen to what a lot of people in the media say, you would think this offensive line is absolutely trash, and I think they're actually kind of middle of the road. So I think they're going to continue to get better. As far as defensive back, it all hinges on Jason Verrett. If Jason Verrett is going to be able to get back, they believe he's going to get back and be able to make plays and play at a high level. You wait for Jason Verrett, Deommodore Lenoir, Ombre Thomas. Those guys can get you through until it's time for Jason Verrett to get healthy. If that's not the case, yeah, you go out there and you find somebody else in the trade market to be able to pick up, because this defense is elite, and making sure that you secure it, that could be the missing piece, to get you over the top and into the Super Bowl where you can win, because I do think it's an all-in type situation. Ernest says, and do you think players are soft nowadays? I mean, riding a lot, cut off his finger to play, and now, we're talking about Ronnie Lott, cut his finger off to play, and now growing hurts and all of a sudden can't play, or my groin hurts. I myself worked through a torn ligament in my left. I don't think players are soft. I don't ever want to say I think players are soft. I think it's a different game. Now, I do think that mindsets have changed for sure, because, before the stigma was if you could play through it, you did. I think now it's a little bit different, because these guys are thinking about the future and thinking about what their life could be after football. Life after football wasn't something these guys thought about. That's why Ronnie Lott did what he did, and that's why these guys would get their bell rung when it was concussions, and it was different. But also, players are bigger, faster, stronger. They're moving quicker, and the hits are a little bit harder. So I don't think they're softer, but I think the mindset has changed for sure on some of these guys and how they play. Lou says, but Kinlaw had bad knees in college. That's the issue. I'm not saying he didn't, Lou. I'm not arguing that at all. And did they take a chance on him? Absolutely, they did. I think since then, they've definitely changed their mindset on how they draft and have tried to draft players without injury history. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to get hurt. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying they didn't draft Kinlaw and he didn't have injury concerns. He did. They weighed it. They felt like it was worth the risk, and they went ahead and made the move. It didn't work out, and we see this, every situation where for every Javon Kinlaw, there's a Frank Gore. Frank Gore had multiple knee injuries and yet had himself a Hall of Fame career. So it's one of those things. Sometimes you take chances, and draft is one of those crapshoots. You're just hoping you hit. You're hoping your doctors are right. You're hoping everything's going to work out. And so far with Kinlaw and the injuries, it hasn't. I mean, that's just how clear it is. David Campbell says Trent and Bosa back for the KC game. I think Trent Williams could be. I'm kind of not expecting Bosa to be back. I don't think we're going to see Bosa until the Rams. I think that Trent Williams could come back at Kansas City with it being at home on grass. Him working out last week in Carolina before the game, I think kind of signals that maybe Trent could be back in a couple weeks. But really, I think the most important one is the Rams. So if Trent Williams was iffy for Kansas City, I'm not playing him. I know it's a huge game, but it's a non-conference game. They're in the AFC. So, I mean, would it hurt your overall record to lose to Kansas City? Absolutely. But you know what would be absolutely huge is if you beat the Rams the next week. If you were able to sweep the Rams for the season, defending Super Bowl champions, division winners last year, and go up 3-0 in the division overall, that's huge for the 49ers. And if they beat Atlanta and did that, they would end up 5-3 going into their bye week with 3 wins in division. They'd have to feel pretty comfortable about their chances to make the playoffs and to win the NFC West. So I know they hadn't played Arizona yet, and that could play into it, but they would already have a win over Seattle and 2 wins over the Rams, which I think is the most significant of the games coming up out of the 3. The significance goes the LA Rams, then the Atlanta Falcons because they're in conference, then the Chiefs, even though we all want to beat the Chiefs. I want to win them all, but I'm just saying when you're thinking about injuries, that's kind of how you have to go through all those things. And I don't really have any thoughts on TJ Uzama, to be honest, SG. Not really a whole lot, about him that I know. So I don't really have anything to add to what you probably already know. Mike says middle of the road with Trent out is pretty good. Yeah, middle of the road without Trent Williams is fantastic. So I thought the offensive line, Aaron Banks has definitely played better than I think anyone expected. And, the fact that he's a top 15 guard in this league, as far as his numbers and overall ratings are, that's good news. And Burford, I mean, he's stepping in as a rookie and he's doing a pretty good job and he's battling. And, Daniel Brunskill's coming in and he's working his way back in. So if you would have told me we'd be on our third left tackle, that Banks and Burford would have started at guards and Brendel would start at center, and then Mike McGlinchey would hold down the right side, and we'd be middle of the road offensive line, be pretty excited about it. And you know what? Right now, they're keeping Jimmy Garoppolo upright. They can keep Jimmy Garoppolo upright this week against Atlanta. 49ers are probably going to have a good chance to win this game. I think they will win if they can do that. So I think the offensive line is playing better than probably anyone anticipated, maybe except for their own selves. Travis says players aren't softer, they're smarter now. I'm with you. Mindset now, hey, they're worrying about things after football, worried about family, worried about life. Though, back then football was life. And that was a crazy mindset. But you know what? I understand that mindset as well. Get out there and you battle. There's a warrior mentality that's with it. And there's still guys that are in this league that are that way. And then there's some that, they understand it's a business. So I see it from both points of view, but I don't think that makes you soft at all. I think caring about your body and health is perfectly fine. Lou says every team is out there looking for an O lineman. There's just none ever available. Yeah, there's not. I mean, that's the thing. There's really, when it comes down to it, if you start looking at the numbers, there's not a lot of really good offensive linemen in this league overall. I mean, you're trying to get your hands on as many as you can, and draft and development seems to be the best way. But it's hard, and when you do get a really good offensive line like the Raiders had a couple years ago, then it got too expensive and you had to get rid of everyone. So you have to keep, influx of new talent all the time on the offensive line, because when one comes available that's pretty good, everyone wants to pay for him. It's kind of the way it goes. Ernest says, I love that word that you put into it, but remember the hard effect. That's how I know you like the guy. Yeah, that's true. Lou says, in the first round, your draft, the player needs to be clean. That's my point. Yeah, I think that could be a point of view. I think that through the years you've seen guys who were taken high in drafts that weren't. Some of them, work out. I think sometimes you have a guy that had a completely clean bill of health and he gets hurt. And you've had guys that have been injured and they come in and they never get hurt again. I think you would like that. I think you would love to take a player, in the first round that has a clean bill of health, that it loves football. He has all the mindsets. He has all the things that you want, that he's a blue chipper. But there's a reason, that there's, more, that there's not that many first round picks still in the league. It's a crapshoot. But Lou, I'm with you. If I was drafting, I would want someone with a clean bill of health as well. I don't know how many of these guys have it. I don't get to see their medical, but it would be interesting to know how many guys actually have a clean bill of health going into the draft and not something that teams are concerned about. I'd be curious to see what that is. Mr. Data says, I can't be mad about drafting Kinlaw when the same regime found guys like Kittle, Hufanga, Greenlaw, Warner. When they did, they do a pretty good job. I think overall it's balanced out. They've had misses. They've had guys that, Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster in that first draft, and I think they learned lessons from that. But for, those in the same draft, they found Kittle. They found Greenlaw and Hufanga, like you said. They found De'Amaro Lenore, who's been a starting nickel corner this year, and Samuel Womack. So they have misses, but they have hits too. And it looks like Aaron Banks is going to be a hit. Elijah Mitchell is going to be a hit. Spencer Burford's going to be a hit. Like, they're starting to rack them up right now. And I think that's what's huge about this 49ers team is the draft and development's real. And so have they had misses? Yes. But I don't think you could go back and look at, Bill Polian, and he was, well touted as a general manager. You go and look at his drafts and he had huge hits and huge misses. It's just the way it works. And you just hope you hit more than you miss. And when you hit, you're hoping it's out of the world, out of the ballpark, like a George Kittle or potentially a Talanoa Hufanga or Fred Warner. And so far, it's worked out. So I'm with you. I'm not hating on them for it. I think they took a chance. It didn't work. It hasn't worked out. I'm going to say hasn't, not didn't, because we don't know what the rest of the season is going to unfold. For all we know, Kinlaw's going to come back and tear it up. We just don't know. And I honestly don't have any idea what's up with that knee. WTM says, who is the fastest player on the team? That is a good question. I honestly don't know who the fastest player is. I think, I think probably, I'd take it back. It's Danny Gray. I don't know why I was thinking, but it's obviously Danny Gray. He's the fastest guy on this team. He's a legit low 4.3 guy, so it's got to be Danny Gray. Longtime Niner fan says, so far, it is great that McGlinchey has made it past his tough injury last season. Kudos to our rehab team. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people talked about it could be the end of his career, and he's come back. And, early on, especially when he had a setback, there were question marks, and then he looked rusty, and he looked like he was slow, and now he looks back to form. They found a healthy weight for him. I think that's important and impressive that they've worked with him so much. But yeah, overall, I'm with you. McGlinchey is doing a pretty good job. I'm definitely excited about it. And KNDR re-ups the membership. Thanks, KNDR. I really, really appreciate that. And says, why do defensive tackles play inside, but offensive tackles play outside? Wow. Whoa, heavy. Heavy, Ogre. Heavy. That is a good point. Why do defensive tackles play inside and offensive tackles play outside? I don't know. The world may never know, I guess. I've never thought about that. You got maybe because they're inside of the ends, because you have tight ends and you have tackles. In defense, you have, defensive tackles, defensive ends. That would be my guess. Well played on the chat. I really enjoy that, KNDR, and thanks for re-upping the membership and taking advantage of your membership super chat. That was so funny. I really, really like that. And JL is coming through with Danny Gray. Love that. SG says, who should I start at quarterback in my fantasy football league? Because there are so many to get players to choose from. Well, it depends. It depends on who you have available. Is it one where you can pick any quarterback? Do you have particular quarterbacks already? Let me know in chat. Mr. Data says, speaking of Danny Gray, do you think we can get him involved? I keep thinking they're going to, but they haven't so far. Finding snaps for some of these guys has been tough. I think Jawan Jennings only played 15 snaps last week. So if you're playing Jawan 15 snaps, how many are available for Danny Gray? I believe he got 7. So I think in those 7 plays, how many targets can you get him realistically? 2? So I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have on this team. I think they're hoping they're going to have a couple of plays where they're able to get him the ball and he can create. I'm waiting for them to use him, in fly sweeps or a reverse type look and use his speed to get the edge. So far, we haven't seen it. So I know they have Ray that can do the same thing, but I mean, when it comes down to it, Danny Gray's the 5th wide receiver and they haven't been using him much. It doesn't mean it won't change or that a certain team or game plan won't be something they need to use Danny Gray for, but I think it's going to be more here and there. And I think that's the problem with, having a guy that's a 5th option at wide receiver. There's just not going to be as many opportunities with the way the 40 yards go about offense is built on a run game. And then, going ahead and taking advantage of pass plays over the middle. And you already have, some really, really good weapons like Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. Opportunities just aren't there. But I kept saying, I didn't care how many catches Danny Gray had this year, as long as when he had catches, they were explosives. I wanted like a 17-yard catch average. So far, we haven't got anything from him. I'm hoping at some point we do, but we'll see what Kyle Shanahan ends up scheming up and when they get comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing to Danny Gray. At least he took some shots down the field, which is really good as well. And Long Time is enjoying KNDR. Yeah, KNDR comes through strong with that one. That was so impressive. Always love the good comments over here on chat. It's fantastic. And KNDR comes with some of the real great ones. He really does. But thanks everyone for watching the episode, the Q&A. I had a lot of fun interacting and having a conversation with each and every one of you. Looking forward to more. Hope you guys all enjoy the Thursday night game tonight. Check out all the stuff that's been coming out on the channel. Madden Sim will come out tomorrow. Also, What's Good with Jay in the Bay tomorrow. And then on Saturday, What's the Game Plan with me? Check it out. I go over all the game plan of what's going on with the 49ers against the Atlanta Falcons, how they're going to attack on offense and defense. Of course, you can always check it out on Patreon as well. But guys, also like and subscribe if you have the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It helps the algorithm. Also join me after the game, guys. Join me after the game so we can go to live reaction. We'll have a lot of interaction together. And thank you so much for everyone that's already saying that it's been a great show. I had a lot of fun. It's because of you that it's been a lot of fun. And WTM says, when is the next live? The next live will be Sunday after the game. Come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, I'm looking into doing some more lives, WTM. So I'll try to get that information out there to everyone. But thank you guys so much for joining. Have a great night, everyone. Stay safe, and remember the right way is always the 49ers way.